Kay Chan. I love talking to business owners. Kay is a graphic designer, illustrator, but what an incredible story. He's from Cambodia. As a child, he was there with his parents and his siblings, and the war happened there, Vietnam, and it was a terrible situation. They were refugees. They eventually came to the United States. They were in Lowell, Massachusetts, and they it was a very small apartment. They had to share beds, and they're not treated well, very poor. There was rocks thrown through the windows, as he describes. But one day he just kind of caught the bug. The combination of his brother drawing a picture of his girlfriend and watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles just turned him around. He started drawing. He wanted to be an illustrator. He started teaching himself all of these programs, these applications. I'm not sure if you're familiar, like with Photoshop and Corel and Dreamweaver and Flash. And eventually he made some decisions, and he was at corporate. He was at CVS and Hasbro, and did extremely well at all these places. He eventually broke off and now is a freelancer and works with clients directly, helping them with all graphic design, but just the way he thinks. And I ask him about breaking away from the corporate life, about graphic design, about PowerPoint, some common mistakes, about logo design, etc. His view on discipline, very unique, by the way. Excellent and engaging and fun conversation with Kay Chan. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. I'm very excited to talk to you, Kay Chan. Thank you so much for your time. When do you use a lob wedge versus a sand wedge?
When do I use a lob wedge versus a sand wedge?
Yeah.
It depends on the distance and it depends on the bounce, really. So I have my sand wedge at a lower bounce and my lob wedge at a higher bounce. So um, particularly when I need more ground assistance or hitting out of a bunker shot, I'd probably use my lob wedge. If I'm on a tight lie, I'd probably use you know, something where I could dig into the ground a little bit more. I'd probably use my sand wedge.
So if you got to chase it a little bit, so you use the sand wedge. So if you're 50 out from the pin, and there's no bunker there, you have plenty of room to kind of chase it a little bit. Would you still kind of lean it forward?
It depends. It depends on that 50 out. Uh, I'd say I'd say if there's a lot of room if there's a lot of green to work with,
Yeah.
I'd probably do a bump and run with say like a pitching wedge or an 8 iron. Uh, but you know, it really depends on the situation itself. Of course, if I'm in a tougher in the rough or something, I'd probably prefer something shorter, something more lofty.
Yeah, that bump and run. I don't ever practice with the 8s and the 7s with those bump and runs. I just never do. I just kind of lean out my like I said, I just press it forward, my 56, and ends up turning into about a 7 probably. But and that's how I do it the best. What is it about golf that attracts you?
Oh my God. I think I have a natural, I don't know, I'm just naturally drawn to things that are just impossible.
Mm,
I think that describes my entire life and the things that I do enjoy. I mean, I grew up playing video games and I always set it to like the hardest mode possible, you know.
huh.
Um, and generally speaking, I get aggravated when I buy a game and the the highest difficulty I can get it to is normal until I can beat it.
Ah.
And then I have the option to go onto hardest mode. So yeah, I think I'm like a glutton for punishment. And I think that's why I'm in I'm in the field that I'm in right now. So in terms of golf, yeah, I mean, the more difficult it is, it's just so rewarding when you're good at it. Sometimes on the days that you're good at it.
Mm, mm.
Because honestly speaking, everybody sucks at golf.
But it's
You
so
just have your
time
days.
consuming. Yeah, you have to pick. Yeah, sometimes you have it, and sometimes you don't. We saw that with the President's Cup, right? Is this you kind of get
Yeah.
hot, and sometimes you don't. But it's so time consuming. You've got a young child. It's so expensive. I mean, why put ourselves through this? That when everybody talks to me about it, I always try to talk them out of it.
Listen, Joe, the best part about golf is that it's time consuming.
Is it?
Okay? I mean, it's the simplest form of a mini vacation.
Mm,
Honestly, I mean, it's a little getaway. I mean, you're gone for maybe 4.5 hours. Um, you know, and I will tell you that have you ever ridden a motorcycle or anything of
I
that sort?
have.
Like
I have.
you used to ride? Um, then you realize how therapeutic that is,
Mm,
right? Um, I have that same sensation when I'm out on a golf course.
hmm.
Like I don't have work on the brain. I know that my kid's being taken care of because, of course, I'm not allowed on the golf course unless that's taken
Of
care of
course.
first.
Of course. Of course.
Um, and just the stress of the weekly grind, it just disappears the moment
Mm,
you hit that the moment you have that first swing,
mm.
and you have that for the next 4 hours. Mind you, new frustrations kick in when you're hitting bad shots and you're sinking the ball into the water, or you're just you know duffing or slicing or shanking your shots. I mean that's a whole different other thing, but it's still way better than being in front of the computer all day.
Ha!
I'll
Yeah,
take I'll take the worst day of golf over having to work.
really? I thought you were gonna say your worst day of golf over the best day at work.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
And well, no, 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 no. I mean, my best days at work, I mean, nothing really compares to that.
Right, right.
But I gotta tell you, I mean, you don't have too many best days at work.
Yeah, that is true. And you don't have best days at golf. Even when I played some of my best rounds, there's still that one putt I should have hit, or I should
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
it's never even the pros say that.
Yeah, so many times. So many times I walk away, oh my God, I wish I could have that hole back. That's, you know, or other times I'm like, ah, I freaking hate this game.
You gotta have a short memory. And what you were saying before is that it puts you off the grid, right? Because we're
It does.
outside. I turn the phone off. I like to walk when I play, although sometimes they won't let you. But whenever I can, I like to walk and just feel it. Just feel the environment, and
Yeah.
just you're still focused, but you're out there in nature. You're it's wonderful.
You are. I would compare it to, say, for the people who don't golf. You could compare it to people who love fishing. I have friends that love fishing who doesn't understand golf and
Mm,
doesn't understand why I golf. But as we have our conversations and we're describing like the feelings we go through, they're like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel when I fish.
mm.
And then there are people who I know who love to go camping or hiking or things of that nature and being one with nature. Um, they tell me the same thing. I mean, the feeling there is very comparable.
Hmm.
It's just that golf, it gives me the chance to beat myself up for it.
Yeah.
I'm competing against something, and particularly unlike basketball, unlike volleyball, unlike all the other pro sports that are out there, golf is a game against yourself.
Yeah.
And it really gives you that mental exercise to um, navigate your own psyche and even question yourself. You know, you're in your own head. You get to evaluate yourself, and you have all the time to do that. It's a good exercise to do that.
It certainly is, and those other sports you mentioned are all team sports. I played soccer as a kid, I played baseball, basketball, and then to play this one sport where you can't, the best thing about it is that you can't blame anybody else. You take all the credit, and the worst thing about it is that you can't
Right.
take, the same thing. Uh, so it switches, but some of the greatest things about it is that we could play it until we die. It doesn't, you know what I mean? I can't play soccer anymore, right? I can't get hurt
Right.
because if I
Right.
twist my knee, then I can't play golf. Then I have to, I can't do other things. So that's the wonderful thing about it. And
Yeah,
it's
I'm
never,
glad you mentioned that because, I grew up playing all sorts of sports.
yes,
I was a track and field star. I played a lot of basketball, football, volleyball, all those. And the moment I destroyed my knee, it was done.
it's
I was
done.
gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very, very true because they're impact sports and you're cutting and yeah, I love it though. Again, I try to talk people out of it, but I'm still out there. I'm still putting in, 100 plus rounds
Right.
a year. I can't help it. So you're born in Cambodia, I believe, and you're with your
Yes.
family, and there's the atrocity that's happening there with the war. Um, with Vietnam leaking over from Vietnam, and you end up coming to the States. You're in Lowell, Mass, I believe, as a refugee. You
Yes.
kind of describe it as being tough, as getting rocks thrown through your window and things like that. And
Yep.
and then come the mutant turtles, the mutant ninja turtles.
They were my saving grace. I mean, I
Yes,
loved them. They were my inspiration into the world of arts. I growing up, I never knew how comic book was so much fun. Um, and then, we didn't have a lot of TV time either, but, when we were allotted TV times, I was like, oh, what was it? I forgot what time it was, but it had to be like somewhere around like, I don't know, 2:30, 3:30 or so. I was like, all right, this time is designated for me because I cannot miss an episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right?
mm.
I mean, I was so infatuated with it. I, began drawing them on my own and like it wasn't before long that I discovered, hey, I actually have a natural talent for this stuff, I'm actually a great illustrator. But no, I
Yeah.
think that's initially what got me started into this my self-discovery in the creative arts.
It's wonderful avenue. And you also describe a story where your brother drew a picture of a woman and you couldn't believe his talent.
Yeah, he surprised me one day because he had a picture of his I would say his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend at the time, because they had just recently broken up, so he was going through his,
Yeah.
feelings. And he ended up drawing a picture of her, and he just posted it on his wall. I walk into his room, and I just noticed it. I was like, this is incredible. It looks exactly like her, right? I was like, who had this done for you? And he was like, no, I drew it. I was like, you can draw? So there were things that I had no idea. And like he was also, you know, was someone that I looked up to, I aspired to be this guy because he was like my only older brother and he was the one that I looked up to the most. And, to see him being able to do that and to me it was like unlocking a new secret code that I never knew about my brother, and it just made me adore him even more. So I was like, I wanted to be just like this guy.
It's wonderful once we kind of find, you kind of get your motivation there, and then you're watching something else, and you're kind of. And when I first discovered, technology, computers, I started teaching myself a computer language, and the next thing I know, I'm working, and it's 4 or 5 hours later, and I didn't realize it. I'm sure it was something similar with you. Time would just fly by.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When it came to I mean, when I first started, it was just illustrating, comic book characters, Marvel characters, a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and so on. But there was a time when I had to transition everything that I knew into the digital space. Not because I thought I had to, but because it was there, and I was, like I said, I'm just naturally drawn to like certain things, and
Mm.
I would say like the digital space was like a new difficulty to unlock, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, so I always wondered, hey, the things that I can do on paper with a pencil and paper, I wonder if I can do that digitally, you know.
Hmm.
And come to find that at first I couldn't. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. It took a long time for me to discover, you know, how to manipulate certain things, say like in Photoshop or Corel or Illustrator or any design program that you could think of. There was a whole plethora of navigation tools that you had to, overcome. Um, for me, that was all new to me. And then that was just before internet came about too. So everything that had to be learned, I had to learn through, purchasing mountains of books and just burying
Hmm.
myself in it. Um, and it was day in and day out. That's what I did. I mean, the time I used to do drawings or illustrating or painting or any of those stuff, um, it ended up being 100% of that time was now used to learning how to navigate the tools digitally.
And those aren't simple tools. There was lots of tools that you mentioned. I remember there's a Dreamweaver and all these tools, and navigating them was not easy.
No, I mean, you had to take it one day at a time, and it
Yeah.
took me years. And I can't stress this enough, Joey. People in my field, the graphic designers out there, they are severely underpaid for the things that
Mm,
they know,
mm,
or at least for the things that they're expected to know.
mm. So you're doing this, you're loving it, and then you turn it into a career. You're at Hasbro, the game manufacturer, for a long time.
Yeah, I was. I mean, this goes way back, actually. I mean, the way everything got started. Uh, I mean, would you believe it if I told you that I was completely self-taught? I mean, it goes all the way back to, I would say, when I was in grade school. Obviously you heard that, I had a knack for illustrating, and I had a knack for creative writing as well. So at a very young age, I just discovered that I had this above average talent for the creative arts, and I guess at the time I made the determination in high school that this will be the path that I wanted to pursue. Um, and this being the digital age, I guess I was introduced to design applications. I think the first two that I was introduced to was Photoshop and Corel. Um, I mean, I don't think too many people even use Corel anymore. A lot of
No.
them have converted to Illustrator, but nonetheless, a lot of the things that I've learned during this time is actually now obsolete.
Mm,
Um, from learning Photoshop, from learning Corel, it was, I would say, a gateway to other programs such as Quark, Flash, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, all these things that 50% of them aren't even being used anymore. I mean, Quark was so dominant, but then it got overshadowed by InDesign, and now everybody and now InDesign is the design industry for, layout programs and publishing. Um, and it's how, I mean, going from one program to another and having to learn new things all the time, you know, it's it's actually a lot of work, and it takes a lot of discipline to do that. And of course, I was born in the 80s, and internet was only just poking its head while I was in the later years of high school. I um I really didn't have the luxury of Googling how to do certain things. I mean,
mm,
kids have it very easy today when they want to learn a new discipline. Um, I don't think you and I had that luxury back then.
no,
Um,
we didn't.
the most difficult decision I made was not going to college to
Mm,
pursue, a higher education for what it is that I wanted to learn. I mean, for what it's worth, I always felt that creativity couldn't be taught. I do. believe, however, that it can be learned. So I guess I may have gone through decades of regretting that decision.
Mm,
Internally, I would never voice it, but internally, I've regretted that decision because finding jobs was just so difficult.
yeah.
So many job applications always required some sort of college credentials. Um, I struggled. So I guess through those decades of low-paying design jobs that I was able to get, I had just one particular goal, and it was to advance my portfolio and have it one day be worthy of for a high-profile company to overlook my shortcomings of a college degree, you know. And that's essentially what I did. I gained so much real world experience on the job. The kind you're not going to find being lectured by a professor.
Mm,
Um, and before I founded my company, my position went from entry level designer all the way to creative director, and I ended up working for several agencies and Fortune 500 companies, such as CVS, Consigli, and like you said, Hasbro. Um, I mean, I knew, of course, that was only the beginning. During my tenure at Hasbro, I began developing my presentation design business.
mm,
Um, I mean, from I pretty much said goodbye to the corporate life only a year after I founded my business.
mm.
Um, you know, I would say the years of being self-taught and, the discipline to keep striving for something greater, really paid off.
Okay, the decision not to go to college, did your parents have any insight on that? Did they shed an opinion on that?
Oh, they hated me. They hated me for it. I mean, we had some loud arguments about it, and I told them that I didn't have any other interests besides art. And they adamantly believed that it would be my dying decision,
Hmm,
that, it would never bode, it would not bode well. Um, Now my parents and I, we joke about it, you know. Um, you know, they see they see how successful I am now, and I they'll say that they're proud of me now, but I always like to jokingly bring back that conversation about, hey, remember how we fought about me not going to college?
hmm. Good for
They're,
you.
I think they're still a little bitter about it because I do believe that they honestly think that my life could still be better had I done so.
Really? To this day?
Yeah, I don't think so though.
No student loans?
No student loans. I mean, that's a victory in itself, right?
Yes, it certainly is. It certainly is. I call them kids. Young adults come out of school with hundreds of thousands of dollars of school debt.
Right, right. And most of them have paid it off and haven't paid it off. You get what I mean? They've paid the
Hmm.
full amount and are still heavily in that debt.
When you made the transition of just pen to paper to technology, I mean, was it still art to you? I mean, were the since the tools changed, did you still have to approach it a little bit differently? I mean, when you draw, I have artists that are friends that are artists, and they see things and they want to draw it, and it doesn't matter to them if it's on paper, chalk, paint, coal, pencil, computer. Is it the same thing with you? Where when you're with technology, do you have to look at your end result differently?
I think it depends what it is that I'm working on.
Mm,
With the digital space, it gives me a platform that I can do things quicker,
hmm,
um, and it gives me a wider array of possibilities. With a pencil and paper, what I'm doing is I'm working with pencil and an eraser. Whereas, when I'm working with a design tool, I do one thing and I can always do a command or a control Z and it'll undo certain things.
hmm,
So the process in itself is a lot faster, but I guess my approach is not too different from when I was doing from pencil to paper. I
hmm,
mean, I feel that the convenience is there. I do miss one thing, and that's the feeling, you
right.
know, the the actual feeling of having
Mm,
that pen touch that paper. I do miss that.
hmm. Do you still draw at all? Do you ever draw
I
on
haven't had the
pencil?
time. No,
No.
not
Yeah.
not really. My my wife, my girlfriend at the time, um, I did draw a portrait of her, and that was pretty much my last piece that I've
Hmm.
drawn. So I like to think that, I I ended my drawing career with that.
Hmm. Okay, how will AI touch this industry, graphic design?
I think that it's me personally speaking. I think it helps people more like me than it actually helps, say like my clients.
Hmm.
I've dabbled in it. I've used it. I've had it assist me with a lot of with not a lot, but a few of my designs where a client asked for a full blown mural um of a scene with a ton of different activities going on and needing it, say like in less than a week.
Hmm.
You can try to get any artist on board and they will not do that manually. AI assists in those type of aspects, but they will never get it accurate.
Hmm.
So the thing about that too is because my client had to come to me for me to give them that type of information. I told them that AI can probably produce something like this. They would say, but we don't know how to use AI. So they actually contract me to use it instead.
Hmm.
And since I know how to use it's like learning another program, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think it hurts my industry, not that much. I think it helps, like I said, I think it helps me more than it actually helps my clients. If my clients wanted to go in and actually um, and wanted to go in and have a design done by themselves using AI, it's very possible, but I do believe that they'll spend way more time and more money um, than to hire someone like me to get it done.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just because it really requires you to be very specific in your descriptions, and
Right.
I don't know of too many clients that are very good at that.
Yeah, interesting perspective there. I share, your viewpoint there. I'm been in technology for a while, but I just think it'll be here to help. And yeah, for the end users, they don't really know how to use it, so it's more for the designers, the architects, the programmers to work more efficiently. I heard you talk about how you were kind of fed up with the corporate life. There was layoffs at some of those positions you mentioned, and so you went to your you're freelancing. You made your own company. What why the frustration in that level? Some people like the reliability of the 40-hour week and the consistent payroll, etc.
Well, what I noticed about my days as a designer, and especially in corporate life, and especially working in salary, is that I was producing anywhere between 60 to 70 hours a week of work, and being paid 40. Um,
Wow.
it didn't bode too well with, you know, what's expected of me at home. So, I have my girlfriend or my wife at home. While I'm at work and she's expecting me home somewhere around like 5 o'clock, you know,
Mm,
and then I have to make that call to tell her, hey, you know what, I'm probably not going to be home until 9 tonight because we have this huge event and the design has to be done for it. I mean, this happened so often that it got a bit frustrating.
wow.
And then the other thing about the corporate life is that, yes, you do have the security of that 40 hours a week. You get that paycheck every week. The only problem is that anything can happen, and once corporate makes a decision that, hey, they can't, pay your salary anymore for any reason whatsoever due to either downsizing or, if their financials aren't looking good, um, they make the decision to lay you off. That's not that's not the security that I'm looking for. Yes, the 40 hours a week, they're great. But it comes to a point where, hey, that can end almost any time, and that's far worse than me being in control of my day-to-day clients. I can always
Mm,
reach out to a client and say, hey, are you looking for anything to be done? But in my situation now is that I hold a lot of returning clients. I have books of projects that, that should always will be there. So as long as I keep up with the discipline to connect with my clients, um, and I feel that where I am right now is far better than
Hmm.
where I was before. I mean, generally speaking, I work 20 hours a week.
Hmm.
You know, I golf whenever I can. If I didn't have the baby, I'd golf every day.
Mm.
Um, but having the luxury of working only 20 hours a week and being paid, 3 to 4 times more than what I was doing at corporate, that's something that is absolutely worthwhile for me.
But it took you a while to get to that place.
Yeah, and just as your um just as the theme of your podcast, it took a lot of discipline to do
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
I don't think anybody can just, you know, wake up one day and decide, "Hey, I'm gonna do what this guy did." I think what I provide to my clients is far more than just presentation design. I mean, I provide them with, over 25 years of actual design experience, at corporate levels. You're not going to find too many people in that spectrum doing presentation design.
Hmm. So just to anybody listening, just to encourage them to kind of, I remember when I first started my business, okay, and
Hmm.
I would hear ridiculous assumptions like, "Oh, must be nice not having a boss," and then I would say, "I have more bosses now than I've ever had. Every one of my clients is a boss. To some extent, my employees are, the vendors, the distributors." People kind of have this misconception of breaking off on my own, meaning all this freedom. While there is some, you still there's got to kind of align expectations there. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I think the service that you provide should always be catered to your clients,
Mm,
obviously, because that's essentially what your work is all about. It's about bringing your client's vision to life, right? And that's exactly what it is that I do. And when I can't, I apologize for it. If it doesn't happen very often, but a lot of times, my not a lot of times. There are a few times my clients and I don't see eye to eye on a certain vision. Whereas, they're looking for something that I find that is, I would say, isn't up to the standard that I would like to see them at.
hmm,
So we would have discussions about, hey, listen, you know, I appreciate, you know, what you're trying to do, but my job is to help you elevate it. But if you really want to just stick with what you want from here, then I would rather recommend you someone else because, you know, I could actually be saving them money. People who come to me aren't looking to get things done and, in a very, I want to say like mediocre way, just something to pass the bar. No, people who come to me are looking for something that's a lot more creative than that. People who come to me usually look for, you know, that 25 years of design experience. They're not looking for that 1 year of, presentation design.
hmm.
Or presentation development. I apologize. Um, but yes, back to what you were asking is that we do have bosses in a sense that yes, you should appease to what it is that they want, but you also have, equal voice in giving them, um, uh, you know, I guess proper evaluation of what it is that they're thinking, and at the same time making proper recommendation as well on how to pursue forward.
Hmm.
Um, I think having that voice was never there when you're at corporate.
Hmm.
So I do believe that the level of playing field is equal when it comes to what you do and and your relationship with your client.
Hmm. What are common mistakes people make in PowerPoint?
What are common mistakes? Um, a lot of them, are you talking about designers or are you talking about say like clients?
I'm saying, like, business owners, whoever's going to present a presentation, what are common mistakes that they do?
Okay. I think a lot of your listeners is, I'm not pointing to you, but I'm probably pointing to you. Um, Generally speaking, I see this a lot where they use a PowerPoint, say like they use PowerPoint slides the same way they use a Word document.
Mm.
So everything is written out, full blown. All you see are written captions here and there. We're talking about full paragraphs. We're talking about, bullets all over the place. We're talking about maybe one little thumbnail tucked into the corner. And then we're talking about squeezing all these type of information into a single slide. When you really think about it, it is absolutely redundant, and you're better off with just a blank page
Mm.
because the attention no longer is on you as a speaker. You're the presenter. What these slides are supposed to do is to help enforce what it is that you're saying, so that what your audience has is something to look at that they can reference to what it is that you're saying.
Mm.
Everything that's behind you, everything, they can see visually should only enhance what it is that you're saying verbally. So a lot of people have that misconception on how to use PowerPoint, in a sense that, you know, they have to have captions written out behind them, even though they're speaking that same language,
Mm.
to their audience. When you have, like when you're watching a movie and you have captions on, right? You miss 50% of the movie because most of the time you're reading the
You're reading.
captions. You get what I mean? So that's what's happening to that's what's happening to most of the audiences who have who who have these types of slides to look at.
Hmm.
It's just a Word document. And I would say that that would be the number one thing that how they use PowerPoint wrong.
Hmm. And how does a good graphic designer help somebody in PowerPoint?
Oh my goodness. So many ways. But one particular one would be is the message. You know, every slide, every time you click that button, there has to be a very pronounced message. And say say if you're having, a high level presentation to your board, and you want to discuss how, profits have dropped, you know, say like 20% from last year. This is a point of emphasis that you don't want tucked into all these graphs and all that stuff. You want
Hmm.
this blown out. You want this emphasized, and you want this to help the words that you're saying. And I think that with what it is that I provide, obviously, is I take your Word document, you know, and I try to pinpoint all these big pointed messages, and I try to create a visual, um, a something creative, something visual, something that will help enhance what it is that you're saying. And it's slide by slide, you know. So a lot of people think that, what I do is provide presentation slides that are very, generic, and, we could just push it out of the way, and, all we get are just very,
Hmm.
I don't know, standard imagery. Actually, what I try to provide are, you know, every slide I feel like are little pieces of artworks. You know,
Hmm.
every single slide is a design.
I know sometimes I fall into the trap of, well, I'm going to be presenting this to some people, but there's going to be people that aren't there that are going to have to look at the slides without my voice. So a lot of the notes I end up putting in the notes area and not on the slide, but I'm not sure if they're going to look at that. So that's a tough way to go.
Notes are actually used for presenters. So it's
Mm.
weird. PowerPoint does not um it's not as intuitive because PowerPoint sets aside that note section, but what that note section really is a teleprompter.
Mm.
That's really all it is. People would actually not really look at that. When people look at slides, they're supposed to full screen it. They're not even
Right.
supposed to see the
That's
note
the
section.
notes.
Um, that just ends up being, prompted messages for when you're speaking.
Mm.
Um, the thing about uh, say in your situation where it's something that you want to distribute. Well, that also comes with the knowledge of what it is that I provide too, is, you need to understand who your audience is. So prior to any type of engagement, prior to signing any contracts, I always ask, how will this be used?
Hmm.
Because the design approach is always different. If you're standing in front of a crowd with the screen behind you, I will design it a particular way. If
Hmm.
you are having a presentation and you know, uh, it's being exported into the PDF and then printed and being redistributed elsewhere,
Hmm.
of course, I
Hmm.
would have to design that very differently.
Hmm.
So knowing where the end result will be, helps me decide how it's going to be designed.
Yeah, those are very important distinctions.
Very, very. And there are so many different ways people like to use these presentations as well. Some of them like to post it on social media. Obviously, social media, you can have your own little notes, captions,
Hmm.
for your slides to be introduced. Some people would just like to have it printed and then redistributed amongst the company. Some people want to have it emailed to other companies. Well, then there's a whole list of red tape that you also have to cross too. Is, are you distributing this internally? Are you distributing this to other companies? Because now all of a sudden you have to understand that, hey, there are certain information that you will have to keep only privy to the company itself.
Hmm.
You get what I mean? So things of that nature, I like to get out in advance before I even start working on it. So
Hmm.
my first few question is always usually, do you have a brand guide? Do you have a certain design that you want this in? How is this going to be distributed, or how is this going to be presented?
Hmm.
Because every single one of these play a major factor in how it's going to be designed.
Let's talk about you said a brand guide. Let's talk about just logo creation, whether it's a logo for your company. I work with a lot of small to medium businesses, or if it's a logo for a particular program you're going to launch. I mean,
Sure.
what 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 should be in the mind of the person using this logo when they talk to a graphic designer like yourself?
Well, the thing is that a lot of people want logos that, are like Reebok or Nike or um, say like Starbucks, things that are very memorable, things that are very noticeable to the eye.
Mm,
Well,
mm,
the thing about branding and the thing about logos is that it needs to mean something to you first,
mm,
and then to your audience second, right? If it means something to you, then there's going to be more emphasis on how much you love it. There's going to be more emphasis on how you approach your brand. There's going to be more emphasis on, you know, how deeply, you cater to this message that you're trying to broadcast. Um, the thing about logo design is that it is very, very specific to whoever wants it done.
mm,
And I always try to let them know is that, hey, sometimes simple is better, but let's go with, let's have an idea about what it is that you want first. And the thing that are what I try to help them in is the more technical stuff. Is that, all right, what are the type of color usages that you want? Because a lot of
mm,
them will actually come to me with a certain logo in mind already, and then the colors just it doesn't mesh well. Does this work with a dark background? Does this work digitally? Would some of them come in with three different colors, and each of them can't even be overlapped against each other because you just can't read it, and there's not enough contrast. There are so many things to consider when creating a logo or any type of documents whatsoever when it comes to design, that you actually do need someone, who has the expertise to actually guide you through it.
mm,
Um, so being very specific about your logo is actually detrimental to what it is that you want. It's easier to say, hey, I do like this one color, so we must have this one color, and leave it up to me to choose the other four colors that will complement it, right? And say like, oh, there's a little emblem that's very dear to my heart and I want that incorporated into the logo. That's perfect. That's something that we're looking for, something that's dear to you, something that works with you, something that you're going to love. That's all that really matters. And for the logos like, Nike, or the logos like Reebok, or the logos like, Starbucks, those come in time, you know. I mean, back in the day, everybody thought those were crap logos,
Hmm.
right? Nobody knew them until they blew up. Well, the passion you have for your brand is actually going to make it blow up.
Hmm. Okay, is there anything in recent, in the last month or so that you changed your mind on?
Was there anything less? I mean, I've changed my schedule with golfing. Does that count?
No, you changed your mind, your position on. You thought one thing, and you retain some
I'd
evidence,
like.
and you change your mind on anything.
I don't think so. I mean, this ends up being a very boring answer, but so far, at least within the last month, I don't think I've made any regrettable decisions that I'd like to revisit. Um, However, you know, I would like to emphasize that throughout my entire life, and it's only very recently that the decision to not go to college, um, that haunted me
Hmm.
for over a decade,
Hmm.
right? And it's only very recently after I mean, even being hired by, high level corporate companies, that still did not satisfy me. Um,
Hmm.
with my decision. It wasn't until I started, uh, it wasn't until I founded my business where I was finally relieved of, you know, being reassured that that was the right decision. I know that wasn't what you were asking, but I hope that helps.
Now, of course, there's no wrong answer. It doesn't have to be regrettable. Maybe you changed golf balls. I don't know. Maybe you changed something that you'd like to eat and you don't. I just see it.
All right, 2 months ago I changed golf balls. How's
Did you?
that?
Where'd you go to?
I used to play Vice Pro, and I
Yeah.
used to play a Titleist Pro V1, but I recently changed to and I'm very adamant about this because it was a game changer for me. I changed to the TaylorMade TP5X. Um, the distance I'm getting off of that is so much better now.
Yeah, I've been using the TP5 and 5X for years. Yeah. Uh, so I think many times in this world that we are, people are kind of so polarized and they dig into a position, they don't stay. And it's just refreshing to know that, I mean, I maintain the position that I would change my mind on anything given new evidence. So I just
Of
wonder,
course.
I like to ask that question just to see, but it's interesting how deep you went with it. But it's interesting nonetheless. Um, So, I'm a little bit older than you, okay? I started my business in the 90s, and I wasn't paying attention to myself. You talked about working 60, 70 hours a week. I was doing more than that by myself, not paying attention to my weight and my nutrition, and I was not playing sports as much. I got myself up to 340 pounds. The doctor said to me, if you don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. I know you have a young child yourself. So I spent
Right,
the next 6, 7 months, lost about 130 pounds. And you alluded to it before, but people want a quick answer. What's your secret? What's your secret? And there's no secret. Okay. It was discipline, right? I got routine.
right.
I got some balance, some focus, etc. And I lost the weight and kept it off. A lot of people have these goals in mind and they look at it as a finishing line. Now I can go back to the way I was, and that certainly can't be the case in many goal setting endeavors. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Kay.
I mean, huge, huge. I mean, throughout my entire life, I obviously wouldn't be here right now, without maintaining a proper discipline. Um, I remember thinking so many times that, I should just give up and, do something else because the struggle was actually real. I mean, having made the decision to pursue uh my work, you know, I was I was gonna go down kicking and screaming and, I thought I'd just be content with being a struggling artist for the rest of my life, right? And I was so adamant about it. And I would be content with it. But even as a struggle, even as a starving artist, I was still disciplined to be that artist. Every day it was a new learning curve. Every day it was a new, goal in mind. And every day it was always about, all right, what's what's the new thing in design that I have to be up to date on? I have to also be up to date on pop culture. I have to be up to date on the new latest music
Mm,
trend. I have
mm.
to be up to date on like what's the latest meme that you've seen on Facebook, things of that nature. Um, and it's actually a lot of work to be able to be present and creative at the same time, you know. Um, that was also the thing about my decision to not go back to not go to college was that the things that I was going to learn in college are absolutely obsolete in today's age. They really are. Things that I've learned, while I mean, it took a certain level of discipline for me to just grind it out, take those low-paying jobs, and have only one goal in mind, and that was to advance my portfolio.
Hmm. But your extraordinary background, I mean, you had to flee Cambodia. You came here. You describe how you were the whole family was in one bed and you take rotations sleeping on the floor and how, did your parents enforce discipline or was it implied? Tell me what that structure was like.
I think it was, I mean, obviously it'll be a very foreign, it almost sounds foreign to even speak of it now. But yeah, we lived very poorly. I'm one of five children. We had a two-bedroom apartment when we were here, and yeah, not all like we shared bunk beds. And it was a very tiny space. Um, my parents, however, um, they're very proud parents.
Of course.
So raising kids to a certain standard was really all they knew. It was all about reputation. It was all about, making sure that we grew up having the proper manners, having the proper education. And so they were very strict on certain things.
Mm,
You know, I mean, we're talking about the 80s, we're talking about the early 90s. Um, I remember one time I came home with a B minus and I got my butt whooped.
mm.
I mean, that was a type of I mean, we're not talking about the same type of discipline, but that's a different type of
Yeah,
discipline, I'll tell
yes,
you.
yes, yes.
Um, no, I mean, we were expected to come home with A's every single, grade period, and that was kind of like it was enforced,
Mm,
you know. And then so growing up and being always busy and always having your head in the books, that was ingrained like from the moment of birth. And I'm not so sure if it's my parents' fault or if credits go to my parents. I'm not
mm,
sure which to phrase it. But yeah, it was definitely because of our upbringing. And I guess that just flows in pretty much the majority of all my siblings' blood. Is that, I don't know, it just comes natural to us to be,
mm.
you know, to feel that we always have to be so active, to always feel that we have to have some type of goal, and to always work towards it. I think it came very natural for us.
What motivates you? Okay, Chan.
I think, well, the right answer would say like family, my daughter, things of that nature. I think before it was, getting out of that rut. You know, I didn't want to be in that 9 to 5 anymore. I just wanted to, I guess you would say, and I guess we can debate about it too, is to have my freedom, to have, my own business and
Hmm.
to no longer have a boss. Um, and my motivation was to be pretty much the best that I can be at what it is that I do so that I can do, so that I no longer needed that corporate life.
Hmm.
That was my motivation. Now, it's kind of funny, but golf is kind of my motivation.
Hmm.
So it comes to a point where you get to finally reap in your own rewards, or reap in your rewards, um, and you know finally finding the success in this business, finding the time to do the things that I really want to do outside of work, and obviously, yes, my family, my daughter, of course, they're motivational tools too. They are my muse. Um, but the thing that keeps me, you know, going is being able to afford those golf outings,
Hmm.
and honestly, I it almost sounds shallow and short-minded, but I think I've already paid my dues to be able to enjoy what it is I'm doing now.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the motivation I have is, hey, if I don't do a good job at my work, I'm not going to be golfing anymore. So I better stick to it.
Hmm. So, given that motivation, Kay, how do you measure success?
I don't really measure it too much. I think so as long as I am happy, and down with stress, I think I think success is a measurement of your happiness.
Hmm.
I would say I'm a 9 out of 10 if if you ask me how happy I am.
Good for
You know,
you.
you can give me, say, like another $1 million, and I'd probably feel just the same, just
Hmm.
because, I don't think the financial aspect of it, as some people might consider to be successful, I don't think that's where success is at. Success is where you want to be, and
Hmm.
the moment you approach it, the moment you reach it, um, it's not to say that's when you give up, that's when you just let everything go. No, it's to say, hey, you've reached your goal. Now try to enjoy it. That's success.
Hmm. When you approach design, Kay, your strategy, is it more science or art?
I'd like to think it's a little bit of both. Especially, I mean, it really depends. I mean, if you're talking about a poster design, sure, it's going to be a little bit more art. But if you're talking about presentation design, there has to be a lot of science that goes into it.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
you have to understand, how the audience might react to certain things that show up on screen, how the audience might react to certain verbiage that are being used. There's a science behind a lot of that. And as a public speaker or anyone that's presenting, these are the things that you probably should know too. There are countless times where presenters have, passed on their files to me, and I would actually do, um, I would rephrase several of their words just because it's just better for the audience to read than the words that they're using, or
Hmm.
the phrase that they're using, because it matters a lot scientifically on how they react to certain things.
Okay, I was very excited when we set this up. It's just most things I do, I have some art endeavors, but I just don't have enough art in my life. I do some things that I consider artful, but it seems like most of my job is just kind of science, just kind of, and I love the art aspect to it. That's why I like speaking to people like you, and I really appreciate your time today. Anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, very easy. I do have a LinkedIn profile. It's LinkedIn backslash chimeric. Or you could just visit my website, chimeric.com, chimeric.com. And you'd be able to email or direct message me from there.
Chimeric.com, like you said, KHIMERIC.com. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes. Okay, thanks so much. I hope if I'm next time I'm in the general Rhode Island area, maybe we'll go out and play 18 holes.
Oh, absolutely. Your round is on me, and I'll take you to the best course they have here.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Very good, my friend. You be well. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Joe. It's been fun.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.